But let's go. Go live. And we are going live. And if I was smart, I'd have gotten the chat open as well. Hello, everyone.
What is preparation?
There is no preparation. Hello, everyone. Absolutely. Welcome to the show. How are you all doing? Let's zoom out that chat a bit. I want the chat to be readable. There we go. That'll do. Hello, everyone. How are you all doing? Chris Kingan, hello. Thank you very much for the $10. Here's to another great Saturday chat. Yourself as well.
Hopefully. You never know. Stay tuned,
because
anything could happen in the next half hour. Dun,
dun, dun, dun, dun, dun, dun, dun, dun, dun, dun. Anyway. Oh. Right. Let's see. I'm brain dead again this afternoon. I'm drinking coffee. Don't worry. We'll be there soon. Right.
You can put onto a slow boil.
Oh, yeah. Something like that. Hello and good to see you in the new shop. Yes, indeed. This is week 2 of the new shop. Or, well, rather, I've just completed week 1 and this is the second show in the new shop. But yes, I'm better prepared than last week. Last week I had literally just, it was the first day I was in the new shop. Whereas now I've had a week in the new shop and it's been fantastic. There's still a huge amount to set up. The front room is still it's not untidy or anything like that. There's just the tables are empty. There's nothing out yet because I need to actually get out computers and put them on show. I'm so programmed to put everything away as much as possible when I'm not using it. And now I'm just oh no, I need to get all of this out. I've got space to fill, you know. But the workbench is wonderful because I've now got a 3-meter long workbench in the back part of the room, and I can most of the week I've had 6 computers along that workbench on the go at the same time, and the front counter where I serve customers is empty, and the recording workbench is empty, and the tables in the showroom area are empty. So I'm running at what would normally be absolute maximum capacity in the shop, and I've still got all of this free space still. So it's been fantastic.
Are you approximately bewildered?
Yes. I would say I'm overjoyed, but I'm still getting used to it. I'm still figuring out how to use all of this space. But yeah, we'll certainly get there. It's going to be amazing. Give it 3 weeks and it'll be cluttered. It's going to be hard to do that, honestly. There's so much space that it's difficult to clutter it.
Yeah, and think you can walk around without tripping over car tires now.
Yeah. Just being able to walk around the shop is lovely. I'm clocking up way more steps than I normally would as well, which is nice. So I'm fitter. I don't know, but
oh dear.
Yeah. Either way,
that's kind of the thing, isn't it?
It's just really nice. I love everything, and I love the kitchen because I've got a kettle and a coffee machine set up there now, so I can alternate between tea and coffee, and just everything is good. I've been tinkering more with the layout since the last behind the scenes video, and I've improved things a lot. Like Caradog, you know where we put the grey counter? We put it in the front room initially. On day 1 on Tuesday, I swapped that to the back room, and I swapped that trestle table into the front room. So now all the trestle tables are in the front room and the counters are in the back, and just immediately that has made the place look a lot tidier because the tables match. Yes, they're only trestle tables, but they're matching trestle tables. And because I looked at that counter, I'm like, something about that, it's just I don't like it at all. And also because now the workbench is behind the arch, it feels more like this is a workshop and this is a showroom, whereas before it was kind of a mix of both, and it wasn't gelling. But
that's an interesting idea as well, in the sense of I don't know how it would work in the modern world, but actually having a showroom of some kind.
Well, that's kind of the direction. I've had lots of people saying, "Oh, you're going to be selling computers in here," and I'm like, "Well, that wasn't really part of the plan. I mean, I do custom builds to order." But, there's no money in retail. But I think I am getting to the point where I'm like, you know what? I may as well just buy a couple of cheap, not shit laptops kind of thing, and have them out as show laptops, and just have them out available to buy. Nothing super flash, but like, I mean, there is like one or two laptops, just a basic i3 laptop with an SSD that is what 99% of the people should be buying. And I could just buy one of those in, have it on show, and just be like, buy it for $400 from Dell, stick a price tag of $450 on it in the shop. So yeah, because there's good. Yeah, that's how Curry's works.
Also, I think the other thing that possibly could be quite good is that for you as well is getting in some of the not crap Chromebooks. They're like cheap but not crap Chromebooks.
Maybe, yeah,
because they're good. They're good laptops. They're really good laptops for the like 99% of people.
Yeah,
because everything they do is in Chrome anyway.
Yeah, as long as people as long as you sort of explain, as long as they're correctly sold and you understand that Chrome is literally all they do, then yeah,
which is
agree
also
with that.
all that 99% of people do.
Yeah.
Also, the not terrible ones run almost all Android apps as well and stuff like that.
That's
so it's kind of a case of.
I was going to say that's the thing. That's all anyone does until they want to do something else. That's a lot like. I'm going to catch up on chat in a minute, by the way, people. But we're kind of. You know how it goes. This is the thing, is like a lot of Apple got rid of all of the ports on the MacBooks because no one used them. And that's the thing. No one uses the HDMI output on their laptop until they go to a wedding and they want to plug a projector into it to show some slides. And then all of a sudden they're like, why does my and then they're like, why does my £1,500 laptop not have a projector connector on it? And that's the thing. That's the thing with Chromebooks. They're great, and then you want to print, and so
you plug a printer in via USB.
Okay,
do they to a network one?
Do they support printers?
Okay, fine.
Okay, bad example.
But it's a case that there is.
It's fine until you want to do something that it can't do.
Oh, absolutely.
And a Windows laptop can do everything, quote unquote.
Yeah, but to me, I don't view it any differently to any other £300 laptop. Someone says, "Oh, I want to stream AAA games from my £300 laptop." You can't.
Yeah.
Windows can. The laptop physically can't. Not at anything above like 4 frames a second. Yeah. So it's kind of a case of it's still the same limitation in functionality. If a person understands they're buying a cheap laptop that is designed for cheap laptop functions, but to be a good cheap laptop as opposed to a really cut corners cheap laptop, it's kind of that difference to me, because we use them for work and I really like them because they are dumb devices that you can't screw up anywhere near as easily. And you can literally just go. Again, also because almost all of our services are through a browser as well anyway, you can basically just go, here's laptop, sign into services via our website. Ta-da.
Yeah, fair enough.
So for us, they work fantastically. And I think they got a really bad rap just because there were so many awful cheap ones. But they are a lot better than they were.
Yeah, I think that is true. And also, I think some Chromebooks that are just slightly higher quality than the first gen ones would be a great improvement, because like a lot of the issues that I see with the first gen ones do boil down to just broken DC jacks, stuff like that, which is just build quality issues, and that obviously would be resolved on a not shit one kind of thing.
Also,
so
the other thing that resolves it a little bit is that all of the ones I've used have used Type-C. So have just been Type-C charging on either side of the laptop, stuff like that.
That's comfy, yeah. And I'm ready for the Type-C revolution now. Now I've actually got a Type-C charger myself. Suddenly I'm just like, this is awesome. I care about it all of a sudden.
It's amazing.
I knew it was good, but while you don't have a Type-C charger for anything, you're like, well, I guess we'll use that in the future. But once you actually have one or two devices that have Type-C charging, and you have a Type-C charger, and it's just like a big mobile phone charger, you can just plug it into anything. You're like, this is brilliant. Why isn't everything using this?
That basically. But it was like someone was trying to troubleshoot a dodgy charger, and I was like, oh, have you got a phone charger? And they're like, what? I was like, yeah, just try it with the phone charger, see if a light comes on.
Hmm.
Plugged in the phone charger, light came on. Like, there we go. We know there's an issue with the other charger.
Yeah.
And they were just like, what? My mind is blown. I was like, yeah, you might only be able to charge it when the laptop's off,
Yeah.
but at least you can still charge it and use it whilst you're waiting for a new charger.
Yeah. Slow charging is better than no charging.
And they were just like, my mind is blown. What is this? And then, like, going through being able to plug a screen into that USB-C port and stuff as well. And they're just like, my mind is blown. I am amazed. What is this? So yeah,
fair enough.
When the stars align and it all works, and just kind of people just kind of going, holy crap, there's so much stuff out there. So yeah,
fair enough. Well, yeah, I will definitely consider that then in that case. So yeah, it's certainly something to think about. Fair enough. Right, I'm going to roll back through the chat a little bit just because I saw a couple of good questions come up there, and then Caradog and I suddenly got onto a thing, which was that was the original point of this. Is just now and then when we just start talking on things and we just get off on one, it's just like, yeah, that was the point. Let's actually turn this into a show. PC Bolt asks, are beefy AC adapters like 180 to 200 watt laptop adapters inefficient? They don't have active PFC, you think? Yes and no. Efficiency, I don't know about efficiency in terms of, active PFC is nothing to do with, active PFC is not the same as efficiency. So firstly,
what is PFC and what is not active?
Yeah. So firstly, let's talk about efficiency. So obviously the first thing you'll see there is most 80, like a desktop power supply would be like an 80 plus rating, bronze, silver, gold, etc. And that is to do with the percentage of input power that is converted into the DC output or as waste heat. So an 80 plus power supply is at least 80% efficient. So 80% of the input electricity comes out as electricity, up to 20% will come out as heat. So that is efficiency. Laptop adapters, I don't know how efficient they are. I think they're pretty efficient because they're passively cooled. So they're not, and they're passively cooled and they're very compact. And generally speaking, those two things generally imply pretty good efficiency. Because if they weren't very efficient, that means they would be getting very hot, which means they would have fans in them, and they don't, So efficiency, don't know the numbers, but I think they're reasonably good. They're going to be at least as good as a desktop power supply.
I think I've only ever seen fans in like the very first generation or so of the full-on like workstation desktop replacement type laptops that were a mile thick.
That's right. When switching power supplies were still a bit crap.
Yeah, and they had twin 40mm fans on there, and it genuinely sounded like your power brick was going to take off before the laptop even turned on.
So yeah, that's efficiency.
It's like,
PFC is power factor correction. So power factor is really complicated. So I'm going to make a very generalized, sweeping summary of it. So AC mains, you have a sine wave, right, of your AC. Switching directions because it's alternating current. Now, if you have a inductive load like a coil of wire, as you would find in a switching power supply, what that does is, because that coil is charging and discharging, it puts lag into the sine wave of the power. So as the power comes back around and returns to neutral, the coils and the inductors in switching power supplies shift the wave so it's behind. Now, this is apparent power. It's power that the power station needs to account for, but hasn't actually been used because it goes back to the generator. That's where it gets complicated as to whether that power is actually being used or not. Not going to go into that. The point is that a switching power supply delays the waveform on the AC signal, and that is an imbalance in the power factor. Vice versa, a capacitive load advances the wave. So big capacitors move the wave forward instead. And so if you have a big switching power supply, or if you have a big electric motor, these are inductive loads, they shift the power band backwards. And so power factor correction is when you have additional circuitry in your device that corrects that back to where it should be again. So the apparent power is equal to the real power that the device is consuming. Passive power factor correction would just be a bunch of input capacitors on the power supply that offset the inductive load to keep it about straight. And then active power factor correction means there's actually an electronic circuit that is monitoring the power factor and dynamically adjusting the input capacitance and stuff like that. I don't know exactly how active power factor correction works, but there is a circuit in there that fixes the power factor. So power factor is not the same as efficiency. The vast majority of countries, certainly on residential power, you are charged for real power, which means the power factor of your devices doesn't mean anything to you. It makes no difference whatsoever. However, in industrial applications, like factories, where there is usually very, very heavy imbalance on the power factor because they've got big electric motors running factories and machinery, the power factor will often be a million miles out on that factory, and they get charged for apparent power, which accounts for the imbalance in the power factor. So that it would matter. Likewise, if you've got an office block filled with office computers, that's a lot of inductive power supplies, which again might create a big offset in the power factor. So yes. As for, I don't think low wattage stuff generally doesn't bother having power factor correction because it's not, the actual load isn't enough for it to really matter, I don't think. However, yeah, but then I think that power factor correction circuitry is becoming very sophisticated now, that it's becoming easier and easier to implement it. And certainly now we're also going into a realm where in the name of efficiency, like, you know, with the 12VO standards for power supplies and stuff like that, they're trying to make everything really efficient. Power factor correction is a factor in that as well. While that's not efficiency, they also want to make sure that stuff is not completely obliterating your power factor. So I
imagine because it effectively reduces the load to the grid.
Because that's the thing, yeah. Even if you're not, let's say that these numbers are just plucked out of thin air, but let's say you have a 500 watt real load, but the power factor makes it appear to be an 800 watt load. The electric station, the power station, has to make 800 watts, even though you're only using 500. They have to make 800 because that's the apparent load. So therefore, they are burning more fuel to create more energy, even if that energy ends up coming back around again. So yeah, it is still a type of efficiency, but as I say, power factor is really complicated. I don't fully understand it myself. It's very difficult to find clear explanations of it. So yeah, that's power factor. So but it is something that we can expect to see in these bigger laptop power supplies soon. TM, they are going to start saying, yeah, we need APFC in these. So yeah.
I kind of would imagine that certainly for the low wattage stuff, obviously, even if your power factor is less than 50%, if you're pulling like 50 watts, it's a case of, well, actually, who cares? A single inductive light bulb is more than that.
Yeah. And that's just it. Like
that. It's a case of the scale of the offset is so small is to not worth bothering with, unless you're like, this is a device that will get used in the hundreds per household or something like that.
It can be really horrifying. If the power factor is really bad, it can be horrifying. Most switching power supplies, like a typical laptop switching power supply with no power factor correction, has a power factor of about 0.5 or 0.6, just for a basic bitch adapter. Which is, you know, that's only, so the wave has been shifted by half a cycle or a third of a cycle because it's 3-phase. Not sure. But it's not great, but it's not awful either. The real nasty ones are when you look at really cheap widgets that are run by capacitive dropper power supplies. So if anyone here who watches Big Clive will know all about capacitive dropper power supplies. You often see them in things like cheap LED light bulbs, where essentially they're using a very, very simple and compact circuit that can step 240-volt mains down to a couple of volts to run an LED light bulb with no switching power supply. And it looks like it's a miracle because you've got like 4 components that will take 240 volts down to 3 volts. However, the power factor on a capacitive dropper, because it's basically being powered through a capacitor, it's all a capacitive load. And the power factor on it is like 0.1. And so that means that a 5-watt LED bulb can have an apparent wattage of like 20 or 30 watts. And obviously that is several times the real power. So if you scale that up to a house full of those LED light bulbs, you can have hundreds of watts of apparent power while only having a handful of watts of real power. That's where it really gets sketchy.
I guess, though, that would kind of get offset by your computer, your TV.
That's the theory. That's the thing. Because those are all capacitive loads.
Emulsion heater.
Yeah. So if you've got a bunch of inductive loads in power supplies and things like that, that will offset it. Because infamously, you can buy these energy saver plugs that you plug into the wall, and it magically saves you power by filtering your power supply. Basically, they have a capacitor in them, and the theory is the capacitor offsets the inductive loads in the house to bring the power factor of the entire house back into unity. Supposedly. But those do not work, just for the record. That's hogwash, especially because most residential houses don't get charged for apparent power anyway. So, but anyway. Yeah. However, yes, theoretically, generally speaking, if you've got some capacitive loads and some inductive loads, they usually roughly balance out. Or they balance out enough that it's not actually a problem. It's a very fascinating but very, very complicated topic that I'm very interested in but struggle to wrap my head around because there's not very many people who explain it well that actually fully understand it. I did ask my electrician friend about it. I said, dude, can you explain power factor to me? And he was like, sorry, what? Because, he fits sockets. He doesn't need to know about power factor. So you've got to find someone who actually understands, who actually knows how a power station works to actually be able to explain it properly.
I know someone who will explain it to me. Because they wrote the books for the electrician qualifications in the UK.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
They are the one who legitimately wrote the books.
They are
the one who is used as expert counsel for decisions on the new regulations and stuff like that. So yes, I'll ask them.
That's very cool. Yeah. Because, as I say, power factor is a very interesting thing. And because, Big Clive is convinced that at some point, because all of the homes are getting smart energy meters that can read apparent power now, Big Clive is convinced that at some point all of the utility companies are going to start charging for apparent power instead of real power. Whether or not that will
make sense to a degree, because it's still something they have to account for.
That's just it. Like part of me, it's very easy to look at that and be like, oh, but that's not real power, However, it's just like, yeah, but you're the one who's got really inefficient devices. That's a you problem, not the power company. So if you're voluntarily running loads of sorry, I said inefficient then. If you're voluntarily running loads of gadgets that have got terrible power factor, then why is the utility company having to pick up that tab? That's your problem. Although, of course, in a way, it's not the consumer's fault that the manufacturers are making devices with poor power factor. But I think this is where we come around full circle into the idea that newer power supplies will have more power factor correction in them. Desktop PC power supplies have had active power factor correction for decades. So that's not an issue For desktop computers, it's not a problem. Like I was unboxing power supplies for computers decades ago that had PFC stickers on them, because when you pick up a power supply and it's got like Hypot OK and PFC and things like that on it. That's what that sticker is. PFC. It has power factor correction.
I'd never really thought of that.
That's right. A lot of people.
It's also just a case of it's been so long since that was new or relevant.
Yeah.
That you've kind of completely forgotten about it.
That's
right.
right.
I only remember that being a thing like 15 plus years ago.
And also, so many people have no concept of what power factor is, that it's not something you see in the specification or headline spec for a device.
Yeah.
Like, when you're selling your brand new kilowatt Ultra 1 Wizzo power supply, saying it's got active power factor correction in it. People are just like, huh? Whereas, when you say it's efficient or it's got lots of watts, that's something that people know what that is. But power factor, no one understands what power factor is.
Absolutely.
So,
and just thinking about it, it wasn't even something that was mentioned because in A-level physics, we covered electricity, AC stuff, and also DC stuff. But there was no mention of any of so much of this stuff. And I'm just kind of going, whilst yes, it was a physics class, it was still at A level, which is supposed to be advanced level, supposedly. And none of this was even mentioned. So it's just kind of a case of just kind of going,
I am surprised there's not much information on it, because I know, obviously Big Clive has been talking about power factor for a long time, but he very rarely actually explains what it is. He'll say whether something has got good or bad power factor, but there's not many videos where he actually talks about what it is, which is understandable because it's very there's always a pressing urge when you make content not to want to repeat yourself all the time, because now we often talk about discussions on this show more than 1 week in a row, and whenever we're talking about something, we're just like, we've spoken about this before, but someone might not have seen that show, and so that's the problem, is that Big Clive has probably explained it in a couple of videos. However, if you haven't watched every single one of his hundreds and hundreds of videos, you just haven't happened to have seen that video.
Yeah.
But as such, when he started talking about it, I was like, I want to, what is power factor? So I started searching for it. I was searching for articles. I was searching YouTube for like power factor explained. And people would say sort of, there is power factor. And if you have too much inductive loads, you need more capacitive loads. I'm like, yes, but why? What is it?
Yeah.
And at the time, I was astonished at how difficult it was to actually find someone who would explain what it was and actually explain the fact that it's to do with the sine wave of the AC supply. So yeah.
Absolutely. I think it's one of those things where possibly there are explainers and stuff like it, but they are very either reasonably old or they're at the wrong level. That kind of they're looking at it for the wrong level, because I know that there's a difficulty where if you get into certain topics, they very much go way too low level, way too, these are pages and pages of formula to calculate it all, but don't actually in the beginning explain what the thing is or why you care. And just I feel like there's both of them.
Right, John Wright, normal PSU uses power on the peaks of the cycle to charge the smoothing capacitors. PFC uses power throughout the whole cycle. Okay. Yeah, I roughly understand that based on my understanding of things. So when so you're obsessing over the wrong thing. Yes. Okay. That's fine. Part of me wants to ask further questions about this, but the other part of me is just like, we'll be here all day if we start drilling into this further. I think for now we'll just take this as the flying overlook, as it's to do with the correction of the sine wave and stuff like that. But yes, John Wright, absolutely correct. I do understand what you're saying there, that it is also to do with when the power is consumed on the cycle of the wave. So yeah, if you're only sipping a little bit of power at the top of the wave, then that doesn't offset the wave as a whole. It puts a blip on the peak of the wave, but it doesn't shift the entire wave, is my understanding there. So, yeah. So, yes. Maybe there's a simpler explanation for this complex topic. Yeah, basically that, Trev. I agree. So, yeah. Either way, PFC is a very interesting but very complex subject that I don't fully understand myself.
Yeah, there's also, in a sense, kind of the question or statement of kind of going, why does it matter to people who aren't designing things? And I think that's also a point that needs to be.
Yes.
I think that's the main difficulty, is just kind of going, why does it matter to people who aren't designing stuff?
Yeah, agreed. And I think the issue there is just a question of, if the utility companies actually start charging for apparent power, then potentially your electric bill, by how much is uncertain, but your electric bill will potentially be significantly higher than it was before. It will hit your pocket, basically. But as I say, potentially. That's the thing. It's a matter of great debate as to if residential users will ever get charged for apparent power, and also if they do, how bad it will actually be. Because as I say, off the top of my head, I don't know how far out of balance a typical house is. Like we said earlier on, there will be a little bit of balancing between capacitive and inductive loads. But, whether that will be enough to really knock your electric bill or not is debatable.
Yeah. Also, the other thing is, certainly for the UK grid, the cost of generating a kilowatt of electricity is reducing over time. So if the cost per kilowatt goes down, but you're charged for more kilowatts, you possibly end up breaking even on that front effectively.
Yeah.
So...
Yeah. Fair enough.
It's a case of, as a grid, we're slowly getting more cost effective.
That's right. And also, like, Sai just said, and Ofgem would likely bend over and let them do it. Well, that's the thing, is just as that also falls that falls into what we were saying about what the morality of whether it's fair to charge for apparent power is a case of, well, yeah, if the power, if it, it's fair that you will be charged for whatever your requirements are,
Yeah,
and if you're running terrible power factor on your house, that's a you problem. But I think by the time we get to the point where this is actually relevant to real life, I think most household electronics and everything will probably have better power factor correction in them anyway, which will mean that this becomes a moot point. By the time it matters, it won't matter anymore, basically. I think that's my prediction. And that might be what they're deliberately going for. They do very much plan to start charging for apparent power, but by the time they do, they're doing all the groundwork now to make sure that when they do charge for apparent power, people have got good power factor in their houses. And then they can say, yes, we're charging for this now. However, it's not going to hit your bill because we spent the past 5 years regulating manufacturers to have good power factor on their products.
Yeah, I think so. In the sense, I feel like possibly that's what will happen. But we'll kind of need to see. But also, it might be a case of, in the sense of the inverse might happen. They might use, if it is with the smart meters and so on, they might actually say, oh, the power factor on this house is poor, and speak to the owner of that property and say, hi, can we do electrical works on your house to balance the power factor? And they might do something actually on the property to balance the power factor slightly. Potentially, depending on how much of a concern it actually is. So
it wouldn't surprise me if there's some power factor correction at the substations and stuff like that. Like, that must be a thing. There must be a little bit of correction at the substations if it was actually an issue. But I wouldn't know. We're getting into the realms of distribution.
Wild speculation.
Yeah, we're getting into the realms of power distribution here, which I have absolutely no knowledge of whatsoever. So I'm not going to try and talk about it. So yeah. So I'm going to roll back through the chat a little bit. DemiBS, hello. How's it going? Regular supporter. Funny how last year I was laughed at for having a 1,000 watt PSU. Now we need better ones than ever. Yeah. It was... When did I do my kilowatt power supplies are stupid video? I think that was 2 years ago. if my memory serves
Was
me.
it? I thought it was significantly further ago than that.
Or it was 3 years ago, maybe 2 or 3 years ago. I did one of my more popular videos that is titled "Kilowatt Power Supplies Are Stupid," and I provided a very sound argument. Was it 20?
It was 2 years ago.
Yeah, 2 years ago. Yeah. And yeah, I think I have got a pinned comment on that video now that says times have changed. However, yeah, absolutely, it is rather depressing that we're going into. I've spoken about this before as well, I think, but it's computer hardware seems to go in cycles where we seem to go into a performance at whatever the cost, and then we find more efficient ways of maintaining that performance. So we go through requirements of needs a big power supply, doesn't need a big power supply, needs a big power supply. You know, like back in the what would you say, like the NVIDIA 600, 700 era was the last big high power era where...
Well, for the 400 series with Fermi.
Yeah.
They were hot.
Yeah.
I don't recall them particularly using that much power, but it was still quite a lot.
Inefficient, yeah. So yeah, that was the last kind of time where we were at this point where, people needed big power supplies. Then as we went into late 700, but more like the NVIDIA 900 series and stuff like that, suddenly we had a huge amount of horsepower that seemed to use no electricity whatsoever, and suddenly you could slash hundreds of watts off of your power supply and it didn't matter. Same with CPUs. Both Intel and AMD were running very thirsty CPUs, and then suddenly we went into an era that the top end CPUs, well, AMD are currently enjoying, certainly with the 3000 series, they enjoyed an era where the 3950X at stock power legitimately uses about 120 watts for what was their top end CPU, which is amazing. So suddenly you got let's call it 150 to account for a couple of peaks, and if you've got a modest graphics card in there which would be using about 200 watts, 500 watt power supply is fine, man.
Yeah,
absolutely fine. However, unfortunately now, if you've got like an Intel 9 or 10th gen CPU, those guys, they can do 200 or 300 watts easy. And then if you've got a 3080 that's 300 watts, suddenly you've got 600 or 700 watts on your CPU and your GPU. So you're going to spec 800 or 900 watts just to be safe. And yeah, kilowatt power supply, it's not that bonkers anymore.
Absolutely. I think it's the thing with that as well is the fact that you're saying about a reasonable graphics card. Like I've got a 5700 XT, and that maxes out at 150 watts. So it's like you could use a 400 watt power supply on a basically top flight gaming machine from last year, and just be like,
it is definitely
400 watt power supply.
Yeah, it's definitely only the latest gen where it's really starting to count, and also to an extent Intel. I need to do some research on how much power the latest, the 9th and 10th gen Intels actually use, because I'm still working on this video about VRM requirements on motherboards, and one of the things that I need to double check on it is the fact that I did all of my testing with the 3950X. And I have a suspicion that the picture might be very different on the Intel platform, where on the Intel platform, because your CPUs are looking for Spud Nugget, we'll get to you. Because the Intel CPUs are looking for sort of 200 or 300 watts, obviously that's more than double what an AMD CPU needs. So yeah, suddenly having good VRMs on that is actually going to matter. So yeah, that's something that I've got to look into. So doing a quick bit of catch up, Spud Nugget, thank you very much for the $5. Caradog, have you pinged the Discord?
I have specifically pinged Spud in the Discord.
Okay, there we go. So there we go. Spud, we're live. Get in here, we're live. I also want to say hello and welcome to Alexander Torson. Thank you very much for joining as a channel member. Ben Laird as well. Thank you for the $5 earlier on. And then
the conversation about power usage in TDP and stuff, certainly on Intel's side,
Hmm.
becomes much more complicated. Because whilst on both sides, AMD's TDP actually has nothing to do with power. There is no unit of power inside the calculation for their TDP.
Yeah.
What?
It's really. I
but
wish it, like, if TDP, like, if the engineers are looking at TDP going, you know, the TDP is not about power consumption anymore, it's to do with what cooling requirements are needed or something like that, then fine, okay, but please give us a new metric so we know how much power this thing uses. Like, if TDP isn't relevant anymore, then give us a different metric that is relevant. We need a number that tells us how much power this chip consumes. We need to know this.
How much electricity is needed.
Yeah, I'm tired of having
how much electricity is needed.
Yeah, I'm tired of having to look at a review from a technical reviewer to find out what spec power supply a CPU requires. And obviously, like, the box requirements from the box requirements are like, obviously, like, NVIDIA always say sort of, oh, the 3080 requires a 700 watt power supply. That doesn't mean it uses 700 watts.
Yeah, absolutely.
Don't tell us what your recommended power supply is. Tell us how much the product uses. That is a number that is useful. Telling us you recommend a 700 watt power supply doesn't tell me anything.
No, absolutely.
Okay.
Given the fact that, like, the standard, the standard baseline most of the time power usage of, like, the 3080 is, say, 300 watts kind of thing. So it's just kind of going on that front. It's like standard current all of the time usage is, say, 300 watts. So it's like, okay, but might spike to a kilowatt, right? Maybe possibly you also need to work out an boost algorithm that doesn't spike into the multiples of your baseline power usage.
Yeah, maybe.
Possibly.
Yeah. I mean, potentially it is. Yeah. I mean, it looks like they might be doing those big old spikes just so they can hit that maximum boost number, if only for half a second, and then they can say technically it boosts to 5 gigahertz, but if it only stays there for 10 seconds, who cares? You know, what load will be done in 10 seconds?
Loading a web page.
Yeah, but you can do that on 4 gigahertz, I'm pretty certain. So that's
snappiness.
You got to get that blistering Facebook performance, yeah.
But yes, it's also a case that the difference between the numbers is the fact that obviously certainly AMD gives their TDP, meaning basically the maximum this is going to do under standard conditions.
Yeah.
And Intel gives their numbers as the minimum power this will use at base clocks.
Yeah. Which is a completely useless number.
Because no one runs their i9-9900K at the base clocks of 3. Is it 3.5 gigahertz?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I suppose that the minimum power requirement, that is useful for OEMs because that's what they're going to spec the cooling system to. Because they're going to assume race to idle. They're going to be like, oh yeah, well, boost is supposed to be temporary. Whereas, but the thing is for the aftermarket and gaming market, but for the aftermarket and gaming market and custom PC builders, we're just like, well, no, we want to be on boost for as much as possible. And you could say sort of, oh yes, but you're a tiny segment, no one cares about you. And it's like, well, Intel do, because they have an entire series of K-SKU CPUs that are specifically for enthusiasts. So, you know, if you make a product, the K-SKUs that are specifically for enthusiasts, maybe you could also put the number on there that we care about, a la how much power it uses on boost. Fair enough.
Basically.
And because this is also relevant, because as DemniBS also said, what about the new GPUs spiking up to 700 watts briefly and shutting down PCs? Because that's an issue with like the 30 series. Under load, they're not that horrifying for power consumption, but the issue is they can spike to high power consumptions for a moment, which can catch out weak power supplies. And
I think this is also, in a sense, demonstrating how bad some of the power supplies are, or how, not necessarily bad, but kind of pointing out how not capable of transient peaks.
Yeah. Yeah, it can certainly
Yeah.
catch out power supplies with. Yeah, this is the kind of thing that will catch out power supplies that have got crap Chinese capacitors in them. Where, if you start hammering those capacitors, like under steady loads, the capacitors aren't draining. Because that's the thing to remember is that when you have bypass capacitors on either your VRMs or your power supply output, those capacitors are just sitting at a charged state. And they're just absorbing ripple most of the time. However, a lot of the time they're also there that when something bangs onto load, it takes a gulp of power out of the capacitor while the power supply recovers. And so that's the point where that capacitor really gets hit hard. And if you've got cheap, nasty capacitors, they're not going to survive those. They're going to get smashed by it. So, and I think that is what probably catches out a lot of these power supplies as well. Just a power supply where it's like anyone who's dealt with car audio will know the old peak power versus RMS power or whatever it is, where you buy some speakers and it says this is a 2000 watt speaker and it's like, yeah, for 10 nanoseconds. That doesn't mean
it literally rips itself apart.
Yeah, that's right. That's 2000. 2000 watts as it explodes. And it's like, that's not really 2000 watts then, is it? It's just like, yeah, it's just so whereas obviously where the RMS power will probably be closer to 50 watts, which is what it can do continuously. And yeah, I thankfully I don't think any power supply, I don't think any PSUs are really that egregious that they quote peak power as their output instead of continuous. However, we also know that there are plenty of cheap power supplies. I mean, one came up in the Discord recently. The Cooler Master Elite V3 series of power supplies. You call your power supply Elite series. That sounds pretty premium, right? And this was a 500 watt power supply, and the 12 volt rail was like 420 watts. And it was
on a what label?
On a 500 watt power supply, and I'm just like, oh, come,
that's solidly fine.
Yeah, but it just
assuming it's a budget line of power supply.
Yeah, but come on,
Elite branded.
Yeah, my new Aerocool does better than that. I'm pretty certain. And like, if your Aerocool budget power supply is hitting a higher 12 volt rail than that, if you look at any Corsair power supply these days, except maybe the VS series, but all of the CX Builder series and all the rest of it, they're all doing label wattage on the 12 volt rail. Your 500 watt power supply does 500 watts on the 12 volt rail.
I think that's also part of the reason why I've never ever run into an issue with running such low label wattage power supplies.
That's it. This is where the people
always had a power supply that does the label wattage or slightly more. So it's like I've always only put in 500 watt power supplies, even in PCs with like SLI graphics cards and stuff. Maybe a 550 because that's the one I had lying around. And I've just always been like, why do people have problems and issues?
That's it.
I don't understand. Why are people buying 850 watt power supplies and having issues?
Yeah.
And I can't imagine there are that many power supplies that are only like 40% of the label wattage.
Yep, that's right. Because there are 800 watt power supplies out there that have got like a 500 watt 12 volt rail, which is and a lot of the time it'll work because 500 watts is probably all the system actually needs, but 500 watts is not 800 watts, and that's where they get caught out. Is their apparently 800 watt power supply will not take a 600 watt spike from their shiny new 3080. And yeah, those are the people that are running into issues. It's kind of like the stories of people when their mobile phones catch fire and stuff like that. 9 times out of 10, this is the thing. I've seen the kind of chargers that people use on their laptops and their mobile phones. I've seen the state of the charging wires that people use. People come in once a week. Someone comes in with a laptop with the charger hecking wrapped around the cord, wrapped around their laptop, and they go, "Oh, it's not charging." And you look at the cord, and it's frayed, and there's bare wire sticking out of the wire, and you look at that, and you're just like, and they're like, "Oh, it works just fine." I'm like, "No, it doesn't. That's why you're in here telling me your laptop doesn't charge. What part of you thinks that is okay?" And they're like, "Well, it's been fine the past couple of months." And I say to them, "Would you use a hairdryer with a cable that looks like that?" And they're like, "Well, no." And I'm like, "So why are you using this laptop charger with a cable that looks like that? And why are you surprised that it doesn't work?" Ah,
Yeah.
And that's the thing. So when when everyone goes sort of, "Oh, these things are unreliable," and they blow up and they catch fire, I'm just like, I will bet money that 90% of these horror stories you hear, that person had a crap charger or a crap cable. Not all of them. There will be a couple when there was legitimately just a spontaneous explosion or something like that. There's always going to be one or two legit ones. The vast majority of them, people were using trash.
I remember one I dealt with when I was at HTC, where someone complained that their phone spontaneously caught fire.
Yeah.
And what you saw in the photographs they sent of the damage to the phone and the damage and the burn on their leg was actually the burned imprint of a cigarette lighter.
Uh-oh.
So what had actually happened is that they'd filled their cigarette lighter up, put it in next to their phone.
Oh,
Whilst
no.
their phone had been running and stuff, their
Yeah.
phone got warm enough to get to the flash point of the lighter fluid.
Yeah, that's probably not that high, is it? Or failing that, like if they unplug the phone.
Certainly in the middle of summer.
Yeah, and also like, if you've got a slightly frayed cable or something like that, 5 volts will spark. It's not a very powerful spark, but it's still a spark.
Yeah, and just trying to explain to someone, we're like, no, this isn't a fault with the device. That means we need to recall it.
No.
It's, yes, there was a fault in the sense of you got injured, and we're terribly sorry to hear about this. So here is a replacement device. However, no, this doesn't mean we need to recall the device because you put a lighter in your pocket that was covered in fuel next to an electronic device that gets warm.
Yeah.
It's like,
oh, it's painful. It's painful.
Yeah, or the person who complained that their phone melted their pillow because they were charging their phone every night inside their pillow because they were using it to listen to stuff whilst they were asleep. So they stuffed it inside the pillow and were using like some cheap pillow off of eBay or something that wasn't fire rated.
Yeah.
And it's just like, oh.
And you're just like, I sympathize. Like, if no one told you, then you didn't know. However, I'm telling you, and now you know, and no, this is not our fault.
Yes, it was just very much like, no.
It's frustrating. Right, I'm gonna roll back through a couple of questions and super chats super quick, because I'm trying a different technique today. I've got on my laptop, I've got the chat on the left, and on the right, I've got just a notepad, and I'm copying and pasting lines of chat out of it. So instead of stuff just rolling off the screen, I miss it. I'm copying down. So there are some things where like I'm trying to get to everything, but anyway. Not Matt. Okay, it's not them. Thank you very much for the £5. Hey, absolutely love the content. Love seeing systems showcased and brought back to life. Running a 14-year-old power supply to this day safe as well. I mean, if it works. I think
certainly if it's Seasonic, that's only 4 years out of warranty.
Yeah, that's true. If it works, the main issue that you're probably going to face there is that while the 80 plus rating has been around for quite a while, but it's really only in the past sort of 5 or 6 years that it's actually become mainstream, I think, where we actually expect a power supply to have an 80 plus bronze rating or better. So certainly if you're running a 14-year-old power supply, it's probably hilariously inefficient.
Maybe.
But the only penalty for that is that it's going to run a little hot, so it's probably a bit noisier than it could be. But if it's working, it works. No, I'm not going to expect it to catch fire. This has come up in the chat in the show as well before, but I'm not saying that it cannot happen. However, I personally have never seen a power supply fail and take out the computer with it. Now, I'm not saying that that doesn't happen because I've had other people say that has happened to me. However, I do this for a living and I've never seen it, which at least tells you that it's uncommon. Most of the time, when I see a power supply fail catastrophically, like it goes out with a bang and a puff of smoke, it doesn't take out the PC. You switch it on and it goes bang, and it frightens the life out of you. And maybe the breaker goes, and then you go, I'll just unplug that, and you go and switch on your breaker again. But the rest of the PC is fine. For that reason, again, I'm not saying that damage is impossible, but you need to be pretty unlucky for it to actually take something with it.
I'd be interested to see as well if you ran all of the numbers of stuff like that, if you could ever get accurate statistics. If it's less likely in the UK, just because we have a completely different main setup inside.
That is very true as well.
So it's a case of, is it possibly because we have a completely different mains setup that faults like that actually fail a lot faster, so they're less likely to take stuff out? Or, is it just a case of somehow not managed to run into it? It'd be interesting if you could get actually accurate numbers to kind of try and work out why to a degree.
Yeah, that is a very good point. That would be very interesting to know. That might explain why it's not something that I've seen, just because it is even less common with our particular setup. But yeah, interesting. At any rate, as I say, it can happen. I mean, 14 years old, so that's, I don't know. I mean,
the only thing
on the other hand,
connectors not having enough SATA connectors, say, these days, or possibly not having dual 8-pins.
That's kind of what I was going to say. I would be inclined to replace that power supply as a matter of course, just to get something modern that's got nice new connectors on it and stuff like that. So I don't think it's unsafe to use it, but like if it was a main computer, I'd probably be thinking, I want to replace this just to have something shiny and modern. So
well,
just a thought.
On the next upgrade cycle sort of thing.
Yeah,
I'm not
exactly.
carrying this forwards.
Yeah, exactly. Just for the sake of, Demny BS, thank you very much for the $5. Another question. Recommended UPS. Oh no. Recommended UPS for a 5800X 2080 Ti plus monitor. I do not understand UPS numbers. What is it, VA or something like that?
Volt amps.
Yeah. I do not understand UPS numbers. I have no idea how to spec a UPS. I'll just straight up say that.
The really basic and really terrible advice I've always given on that front when someone has asked me has just been, buy the biggest number of VAs you can reasonably afford.
Yeah.
At the very least, that will give you the longest runtime.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. But it's kind of a case of, I don't know specifically how you specify it and how you say, this is actually woefully inefficient for the setup you're doing.
That's just it. If you've got
But it's kind of a case of, as far as I can tell, for like a standard desktop, literally any UPS you buy will be fine for that, in the sense of it will be able to run it for a time, but the time might be 2 minutes. It's not like it will cause it to fail because it's massively overloaded. But it's that.
Yeah.
It's a very niche area.
Yeah. I need to I've got a UPS and I've got one in a box. It's quite an old model, but I put a new battery in it, and I need to get that thing set up and play with it so I can see what kind of runtime it gives on a couple of different computers. And a couple of different loads, and actually measure it so I can get an idea. And I need to check what the rating of it is, and then I can have an idea in my mind that a 500 VA UPS, number out of thin air, that will run a laptop, for 3 days, and it will run a PC for an hour or something like that, so I just have some kind of relative base point. So when someone says, I've got a gaming PC, how big does my UPS need to be? I can say, well, if you got one of this size, it would probably run it for approximately an hour if you're not gaming, more like half an hour if you are gaming, just to give someone a start point. Because that's the thing, is just, it does beg the question, well, is the computer under load, or is that idle? Is it, because a lot of people are just like, I just want to know whether it's going to give me 10 minutes or 10 hours. vague numbers, you know.
What? Sorry,
What have you
apparently a
spotted?
volt amp in SI base units is 1 kilogram meters squared per second to the -3.
Yeah. See, the problem. This is the
What?
problem. Is that This is why I don't understand it. I think the reason why it's a really complicated unit of measurement is that they're trying to, like I just mentioned, you know, is the computer under load or not, and things like that. I think they're trying to account for acceleration effectively.
Oh, it's an apparent power unit.
Yeah, that's what PC Bolt
Right.
said, that it's apparent
Right.
power.
Okay, I've just worked out. Yes, yeah. I was trying to look at it and I was going, I'm so confused. But it's watts, but it's apparent power
Yeah.
watts.
So that's
There
the
we go.
thing. So it
Fine.
depends on the kind of load that you've attached to it.
Yeah.
And that actually makes sense based on our conversation about PFC earlier on as well. But again, it still doesn't answer the question of what does that mean in layman's terms. That's the thing. So yes. No, I don't have a straight answer for you there, Demi. But something to look into, that certainly.
Absolutely. But yes, I was looking at it and I was just like, what are these units? Why are we using meters and why are we using kilograms?
Yeah, that's the problem, is that sometimes when you need to get down to something that's very quantitative, it turns into a very complicated number, especially when you're talking about energy. Because it's sometimes you have to convert something into, you know, you have to say, okay, well, it's the same amount of energy that a 1 kilogram weight exerts, that gravity exerts on a 1 kilogram weight, or
It's just like, what is going on? But yes, oh dear.
Yeah. All right. Alexander Torsen asked earlier on, what do you think of your setup? You got a 9700K water cooled with a 3080 and a 16 gigs of 3600 RAM. That sounds like a banging setup. I'd be very happy with that right now. I think that's going to see you for the foreseeable future, especially with the 3080 in there. Just I'm really sad about the whole situation. I am not going to talk about availability of graphics cards today. I'm sick of the subject. However, yes, I'm aware the 3060 got released. I don't care because you can't buy it. Who cares?
Can.
No, you can't.
You can.
You can't.
I have several places where you can buy it.
I have several pre-orders.
It also costs nearly £2,000.
Yeah, and that. So just, I'm not even. Yeah. So just, I'm not even going to talk about it. Not even going to talk about it. Also, earlier on, Ukur is the name. So asked, what do you think of the Kilowatt brand power meter? I'm not aware that there's any issues with it. However, most of these power meter things, even the cheap ones, seem absolutely fine. Have I got mine lying around somewhere? Hold on a sec. I'm just
going to walk off and disappear into the distance. But yes, I don't have one somewhere.
I don't have a Kilowatt brand one. I've got this one appeared on Big Clive at one point actually, and he spoke very highly of it. I've got this fella. Is my one. It does the same thing as the Kilowatt, so it's a pass-through. You plug it into the wall, you plug your thing in, it tells you how many watts and amps it's using, etc., etc. And these work jolly well. They're very good. They're incredibly cheap. These things are like 15 quid on Amazon, and I highly recommend having one of them lying around the house because you can plug anything into it, and it'll just tell you how much power it's pulling from the wall, which is a really good way to start estimating power consumption. And obviously, it can measure kilowatt hours and stuff like that. So if you want to calculate how much it costs to run something, it will measure watts used over time, so kilowatt hours and so on and so forth. So yeah, very handy. Definitely have one lying around. The Kilowatt brand, I seem to see that one everywhere. Everyone seems to have those. It's probably just the cheapest one on Amazon US, I'd imagine. I haven't seen any specific teardowns of it. However, it's measuring power is not complicated on this kind of scale. So I'm sure it works just fine. And as I say, I highly recommend that people have one kicking around. It's really interesting to plug stuff into them.
Hope that they're all capable of passing through 3 kilowatts.
Yeah,
So
that's
13 amps, 240-volt.
yeah, that's true. I mean, this one is rated. Let's see. Yeah, operating current max 13 amps.
Yeah.
Yep. I mean, the display wattage goes up to 2900 watts, which is so it goes up to just shy of 3 kilowatts. But yeah, as I say, so far as I know, there's nothing wrong with these. I ran this on quite a high load. I had in the old shop, my entire counter bench was all running off of a single plug point. I had a lot of daisy chained power strips into one socket because of that was just the option I had at the time. And I had this on there to measure the actual total draw, just so I could check how much the entire bench was drawing. And yeah, I had this guy at 2 kilowatts at one point, and it was fine. And I also used it on my heaters that are just a 2 kilowatt blower heater for a long time because I wanted to measure power consumption and stuff. And yeah, they seem fine. They seem great. So yes, that's that. Your welder didn't agree. Oh no. Do not plug a welder into one of these.
Oh, I see. You mean the piece of equipment that welds, not
yes.
the person who uses the equipment. Always in English, terrible.
I'm about to butcher a name. Jovica Janjis. I'm sorry. But welcome to Tier 1.
You always look so cockish when you say it.
I'm trying not to be a dick about it, but I look like a dick when I'm butchering someone's name. I look like I'm doing it on purpose. I'm just trying my best to say the name.
Can we not just make it a running meme where, you just intentionally over-anglicize everything?
See, I don't know. I'm trying to be genuine because I don't want to. Like now and then there are streamers that just be like, I can't pronounce that, so I'm not going to try. And I'm just like, way to go, dick. So I try to pronounce everything just so at least I can say I tried. It was close enough. It probably wasn't. However, appreciated.
It was close enough for the person to know who it was.
Yes, they were able to identify that I was speaking to them. So,
in some way.
Let's see. Let's. I think we're. Right, I'm going to roll back to a quick one that came up earlier on. It's the last thing I've got on my notepad, and then we'll go back to current chat issues. Like an hour ago, Obscenity OA asked, "Hi Adamant IT, can you do a video on how to put a resistor on a 3-pin JST connector for the Corsair Elite headset?" What he's talking about here is ages ago I made a video about replacing the battery in the Corsair Void wireless headset. And the battery in said headset has a 3-pin JST connector. So you've got a positive, a negative, and there's a thermal sensor. So the device knows the temperature of the battery. And a lot of LiPo cells that you buy online are just 2-pinners that don't have the thermal sensor in the protection circuit. And I mentioned in that video that you could probably bypass it by sticking a resistor across it to trick the headset into just seeing a fixed temperature value, which obviously is arguably inadvisable because the headset won't know if the battery is overheating. However, it's a tiny little LiPo cell. It'll be fine. However, I didn't elaborate on exactly what value to do. At some point, I'm probably going to revisit my Corsair Void headset because I want to replace the USB port on it with a Type-C connector. I want to try and retrofit a Type-C connector to it. And I also want to replace the volume jog dial on it. And at the same time, I'll probably revisit the battery replacement to talk about how you actually bypass that thermal probe in order to fit a 2-pin LiPo cell to it. So if you're still here, Obscenity, I wouldn't expect to see that video anytime soon, but it is something that I would like to do. So that's that. Right.
Also, obviously, the other thing as well is the fact of doing the comparison between a couple of headsets you've got.
Oh, yes. Yeah, potentially. Yeah. I need to review these. I need to, do a review on that. That'd be nice. I've got to review the Pinesil soldering iron as well, because that's in stock, so it's a good time to release a review for it, because it's been out of stock. It's been out of stock for a couple of weeks, and I kind of didn't want to release a review while it was out of stock, because I'm just like, here's a cool new product that I bought and that I really like, but you can't buy it. I think we've all heard that one before, but I think we're also sick of hearing that. So,
absolutely. I sent you one as well that I spotted to keep in the notepad effectively.
Oh yes. Oh yeah. There it is. Yeah. Well, do you want to talk about this? Because you will be do you want to talk about this?
you may well be a
memory channels and memory ranks and stuff like that are a weak point in my knowledge. I know enough to get by, but I wouldn't say I'm an expert on it. So, do you want to take that one?
My explainer for that is saying about the memory channels are on the memory controller, and they are the number of effectively like the number of individual paths that you can have at one time going out to the memory. Effectively, massive oversimplification, almost possibly to the point of being wrong, but for the sake of understanding it, the memory channel is how many connections you can have at a time to the controller. You can have multiple sticks on a channel. So you could have 2 sticks, 3 sticks, 4 sticks, 8 sticks, in theory, an infinite number of memory sticks on a channel if the controller and platform supports it. Sorry, Night Fusion super chatted a $5 saying £5 towards Caradog's next motherboard after he kills this one. And that kind of took me off. Oh dear. But yes, so the memory channels come from the memory controller, and you can have 4 slots doing 2 channels because you can have 2 sticks per channel. The memory ranks are sort of a subdivision of that because of the way that memory is accessed in SDR and DDR. And it's a case of you can have a memory stick that is a single rank or dual rank, and basically it's effectively single-sided or dual-sided memory sticks. So if you've got the memory modules on just one side of the stick, it's a single rank module.
My understanding is that single rank is preferable at the moment, isn't it? It tends to have less issues.
It's a case of it doesn't really make much of a difference.
Kind of like how XMP is supposed to work. It theoretically doesn't matter, but you have less issues with single rank.
As far as I'm aware, it's basically because you've got several different memory stick styles. So you've got like an A1, an A2, a B1, a B2. I think there's also C1 and C2 to do with the layout of the modules, where they are spaced on it and things like that. And it's a case that basically, as far as I can tell, with 5000 series Ryzen, they want 4 rank memory or greater, because you seem to get an interesting level of performance increase.
So theoretically, if you were running 2 modules, you'd want dual rank.
Yeah, absolutely.
In order to get
4 single rank modules.
Yeah.
So
dual rank. Yeah, so SD1 Rager just said, so dual rank has higher bandwidth, to your understanding. That would make sense, because more ranks is more things you can access at the same time, which means more bandwidth, which means higher speed. So
in kind of in theory.
However, of course, when you carry on.
Sorry, I was just going to say, and the difference is in a degree that each channel can run independently, kind of. So you can, in theory, run one channel at, say, 3800 megatransfers and another channel at, say, 1800 megatransfers. Technically.
Yeah.
It might not actually function.
Linus
but in
Tech Tips
theory, you
did an interesting video recently that came out recently that was about mixing memory. That I don't know how much of the tech specs in it has, but it's worth a flying look, that video, because it does point out some interesting things about the fact that both AMD and Intel both have a technology for this, about running dual channels on dual channel RAM on 2 slots, while you can have a third single module in single channel mode at the same time. And so you can apparently do some very, very hilariously broken configurations now, and it doesn't have a huge impact on performance in the majority of cases. So yeah, its memory support is wild, but also very good as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
They listed a couple of configurations in there that I'm just like, no, surely you don't want to be doing that. And they ran the test, and they were just like, surprisingly enough, this works just fine. So yeah.
It's incredible how much. I think that's kind of a point we've, in a sense, kind of forgotten. Just because the fact of, obviously, if you remember like what DDR1 was like with mixing and matching kits, it basically never worked. Whereas these days you can buy basically anything that says it's DDR4 and it will probably work together. Even if it only works at base speed, it will probably all actually boot and not randomly blue screen all over the place.
Yeah.
Whereas, DDR1 didn't. So yeah.
Fair enough.
It's incredible, this kind of the support and the maturity that has come with, obviously, 4 different generations of it and so on. So yeah, and the fact that you can now get 4 sticks of RAM to run it for 2000 megahertz, 4000 mega transfers, and it's basically, in a vast number of cases, it can be almost as simple as go 4000 load XMP profile. Ta-da!
Yeah, in an ideal world.
Like,
yeah,
it's incredible how we've kind of got to that point. Whereas 10 years ago, going 4 sticks of RAM, that's not even going to work.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, and that brings up an interesting thing, because DemnyBS has just said, found out I was an idiot, lol. Got 2 RAM kits, 2 times 16 dual rank, and 4 times 8 single rank, both 3200 CL14. So that's the thing. Theoretically, there's the same number of ranks in both those kits. It'd be very interesting to see what the performance difference between them would theoretically be there, because obviously, but then on the other hand, on a consumer motherboard, you're running dual. You've only got up to 2 channels of memory anyway. So in which case, yeah, they should both be the same speed, because you've got the same number of ranks. If you were running something like Threadripper, has Threadripper got 4 channels? I'm going to Google that.
I can't remember if Threadripper has 4 channels or if Threadripper Pro has 4 channels.
Oh, it might be, memory channels.
I can't remember what they did, or if they bumped it up to 8 channels. Threadripper has 4 channels. Yes.
All the Threadripper 3000 is 4 channel. So yeah, if you were running Threadripper, you'd have 4 memory channels. So that would be a different kettle of fish.
Which in theory you could get up to 16 ranks.
Yeah. So then obviously you could have all the memory speed from the same kit, theoretically. But yeah. Obviously this this only matters if memory speed is bottlenecking you as well, though.
Yeah. There should be a fractional performance benefit to having the 4 sticks in bandwidth, but the latency will be fractionally worse, because you won't be able to run as tight or as fast.
Oh, no.
In theory, on 2 sticks, you should be able to run a tighter timing sub-timings and stuff as well.
APEAK Gaming, can we interleave DDR2 and DDR3 RAM? No, you get out.
What, to get DDR5?
Yeah, you get out this chat. But yeah, you do tech repairs as well in your own shop. That's cool. Guy come into my shop. He asked, "Oh yeah, that was what a customer asked you." Oh no, oh no. We ask him politely yet firmly to leave. I'm just going to scan through a couple of other bits that I've got on my notepad. Noel Dowds said, "How's trade been in the new shop?" It's been pretty good. I'm having to remember to tell everyone who calls me up that I've moved because I haven't updated my website yet because I'm a baddie. However, yes, steady flow of people coming in as usual. Still, funny thing, I'm having almost the opposite problem where lots of people think that the shop is brand new, and I'm like, no, I've been at the other end of the high street for a decade. This isn't a new shop. I've just moved. So yeah, Treb asks, what's the next big project once the shop is done? I don't know, because the shop is a ongoing project that is going to take most of the year, I think. So, although I think once the shop is done, I want to see what else I can do with the new shop. Because like at the moment, I just want to fit it and have it as a showroom and stuff. However, I'm not eradicating the possibility of doing small time LAN parties, like 25 to 30 seats, that kind of thing. I did some rough napkin calculations and figured that you could probably get at least 25 people seated in this shop without it being too cozy. So the possibility of running very small LAN parties is not bonkers. Don't know if I'll do that or not.
I'll be honest and say 30 people doesn't sound like very small.
Well, it depends on I suppose it depends on your measurement. The other issue as well, though, is that you couldn't make that a sleep-in. You could get 30 people seated in here without it being too cozy, but there wouldn't be space for people to set up for 30 camp beds and stuff. So
yeah.
I don't know if it would work or not. So, yeah. Let's see.
At least people aren't walking in going, "Hi, can I have a haircut?"
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yes, don't worry, sir. We'll just give you a trim using this Delta fan.
You know, that was actually a problem. Is years ago when I was working at Gold Hill Computers, which was the shop run by my ex-boss. Caradog knows that joke. This was when I first moved down to Dorset, and I was managing a computer shop for the first time. The shop was previously a white goods store, and at some point I think they sold beds or something like that. But like for the first week or so, we routinely had people coming in, and like this was a fitted shop, and all the shelves were filled with computer components and stuff like that. We had computers out, laptops out on display for show and stuff like that. And people were coming in going, "Do you sell beds?" And I'm like, "Does it look like I sell beds? What's wrong with you?" You know, and they were dead serious. It happened. So yeah, it's a thing that can happen. So yeah. B. Anderson asked, would cork tiles help with the soundproofing for your new shop from the last thing? Possibly, but I might have something lined up for that. A friend of mine sent me a message saying with a picture of a load of soundproofing tiles on a wall, and he said, "Would these be useful to you?" And I was like, "Do you have them? Are these for sale? Are they surplus? What are you offering here?" And he said, "I think they're surplus." And I'm like, so I need to sort of confirm with them and say, when I say surplus, I mean, are they free? You know, or do you want money? So
don't worry, if they're your friend, they understand.
I think the implication is that they are free, that they are left over from a job. So I might have someone supplying me with an unknown quantity of soundproofing tiles that I can stick on the walls, which will be good because the microphone sounds okay. When I listened back to last week's, I was like, "Oh, that sound quality is just fine," but I'm having to have the microphone uncomfortably close. I mean, it's not super close, like it's
uncomfortably close.
Yeah, but yeah, the microphone would be in the way if I was repairing a computer right now. So I would like to be able to move the microphone back again and turn the gain up on it. But I can't do that because then it'll pick up the echoes. But lots of ideas for that. So yes. And also our new member, Jovica, also said, "Just wanted to say you've won me over by your quite old one there. You've won me over with your video about right to repair. You've seen it about 3 days ago. You're fully on the same page." Yeah, the video I did about right to repair, I made that video quite a long time ago now, and I haven't really been very vocal about right to repair. But in that video, yeah, I think I kind of summed it up quite well. And that video has been getting a lot of views recently, I think. It just the algorithm has been smiling on it. And yeah, as I say, that's still kind of where I stand. I've got mixed opinions, and right to repair is a very, very complicated subject, which I'm not going to go into right now. But yeah, I don't know. There's it's a discussion which still needs to be resolved. Rossmann 2.0, precisely. I mean, I'm not going to get involved in it. People do what they want to do. I'm not going to campaign for it. But I think it's an interesting topic, and I think something needs to change.
Yeah, I think it's something that's worth talking about, just to give an option for airing of the viewpoints from people who are actually informed.
Yeah.
At least about the devices. Just because all of the people I've seen saying stuff against right to repair don't seem to be anyone who actually knows anything about the devices or why it's bad. They've just been told it's bad, and they don't seem to have a talking point as to why it's bad.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, I'm not saying that that's true and it's a purely black-white topic. There are no bad things about this topic, end of discussion. I'm just saying that I'm yet to see people bring one that seems to be their own opinion that isn't bought of a case of, oh, but we'll stop making more money.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. And it's just like, I want to hear strong counterpoints so I can kind of go, oh, I hadn't thought of that. Yes, that's a valid point. Or actually, no, that's just ridiculous.
Interestingly, it's this is actually kind of in the same vein to what we were talking about with power factor correction earlier on, when we were talking about how by the time it's an issue, devices will have been updated to no longer have bad power factor and stuff like that. It's kind of a similar issue here, where currently, you know, we spoke about how people don't know what power factor correction is. It's kind of the same with the repair industry. Is a lot of people are being asked to talk about and vote on repairability while having no idea what repairability is like in products, and they're being told manufacturers are going to be required to disclose confidential manufacturing information. That's bad. And people are just like, well, yeah, why should they have to do that? And they're saying, why should they have to do that, while not actually understanding how difficult modern devices are to repair, and how much the devices have been engineered to be unrepairable, either deliberately or by neglect, both of which are as bad as each other. That's the thing is, and that's something that I always like to hammer home as well, is that neglect and malicious intent are, to all intent and purpose, the same thing, because the end result is the same. Now again, that's probably a bit of a sweeping generalization, but my point is, if you make a product that is terrible, if you make a product that cannot be fixed, if it is unfixable just by accident because you didn't factor that in when you designed it, it's the same as designing it to deliberately be unfixable. Now, this is where Apple comes in. Apple devices, for a long time, have been getting steadily worse and have had lots of areas in them which are unfixable. You know, like, for example, the self-destructing SMCs, which have been a thing for a decade. SMCs cannot be reprogrammed because if you try and read the program if you try and dump the firmware from an SMC, it self-destructs. And that is a case of, okay, well, is that just how it worked out? Because that was just how it ended up being. They were like, well, we're never going to have to reprogram these SMCs, so that doesn't matter. Or did they do it like that deliberately to prevent people from being able to replace the SMC? Well, it doesn't matter. The point is, you can't reprogram an SMC. You have to buy a new one, which is dumb, because a lot of them could probably be saved. And so this is the thing, and this is what I mean, is there's lots of, and it's kind of similar with modern smartphones, that, you know, we've made these displays that are edge-to-edge glass with no bezels, but as a result of that, it now costs £300 to replace the screen on a phone, which is a ridiculous amount of money for a device that you carry around in your pocket and now and then you casually drop. Anyone who says they've never dropped their phone is lying, or they don't carry their phone around, you know. Whether you've broken your phone or not is another question. I've never smashed the glass on my phone, but I drop my phone now and then. And every time I do, I'll go, oh no. And I'm like, whew, So that's the thing. And having to pay £300 to fix a phone, that's ridiculous. So it's a case of, okay, well, what happened there? Have they deliberately made these phones expensive to repair so people will break them, then not get them fixed, and then want to replace them in 18 months? Or is it just because edge-to-edge glass is really hard to replace?
Yeah.
In which case, perhaps you should design it so it's easier to fix, and I don't know where I'm going with this. I'm kind of just stream of thoughting.
Yeah, I think it's a case that it's a symptom, not a cause. Certainly on like phone screens, just because it's a case of because of the demand for ever increasing resolutions, display brightnesses, touch response, and so on, and just sort of all of that stuff. It's necessitated the layers being bonded together. So there is less light leakage. It's necessitated, the displays running to the edge, so you can get larger displays in smaller size devices and things like that. So it's kind of a case of, I think it's been necessitated by market forces, by desires for displays to get better as displays. And it's kind of a case of the byproduct of that is simply the case of it makes it harder to repair.
Yeah. Because that's the thing. Because it's
kind of a case of,
yeah,
in a sense, it's kind of a case of tough.
That's just it. Because I think the direction I was going in with my train of thought there is a case of if your devices become ridiculously difficult to repair, maybe right to repair is a symptom of the problem. Is that we're now wanting devices that are difficult to repair and then complaining that they're difficult to repair. However, as you just said, it's not that we want to. The problem is that we're asking for high resolution, perfect retina clarity displays on a palm-sized device, and there's no other way to achieve that other than a single very difficult to repair device. It's kind of like saying if you want your display to be made out, if you want your front glass to be made out of pure diamond because that is the clearest material in the world, don't complain that it's expensive because you asked for diamond clarity.
I think to me, the right to repair thing isn't necessarily about making it easier to repair in the sense of the process of repairing the device. It's access to the knowledge of repairing it and the replacement parts. To me, it's all about the parts. If I can go to Huawei because I just picked up a Huawei and go, I want to buy every single part in this phone so I can fully replace every part in this phone, and they go, sure, here's a list of the parts, buy them off our website, that will be £800. I would be happy to do that today.
Yeah, I was going to say
that's all I want is access to the parts.
Yeah,
I was going to say, I'm not saying that I want each part to be easy to replace and easy to repair. I'm saying that I want access to the parts to do the repair.
I think
if I don't know how to do it, that's a me problem. I don't need courses from the manufacturer saying, here's how to repair your device. I just want the part to do it with. And if I'm not confident, I have to buy two.
Yeah, I think that would certainly be a very good start because, like, the original reason, I can't remember if I told this story or not on the show, but the original reason why I stopped fixing phones, because I used to fix phones way back when in the iPhone 4S and early 5 days. And the reason why I stopped fixing the phones was I couldn't find good parts. I was buying eBay screens, and the dead on arrival ratio, so the number of screens that I bought that were crap, was slowly increasing. And it went from the fact it got to the point where the day where I said I'm done with phones, I had purchased a box of 10 iPhone 4S screens, and one of them in the box of 10 worked. 9 of them were DOA. You plug the screen in, and it either doesn't light up or it comes up with a garbage pattern on the screen. And one of them worked. And I sent a message to the seller saying, these screens are all crap. Where can I get good ones? Do you have good ones? Can you get good ones? I will pay double the price for good ones. Where are the good ones? And their response was, we test every screen before it's dispatched. I'm like, but you don't, because I've got a box of them that don't work.
Yeah, I think it would have been.
And that was the point where I was done. If I could have just gone to the Apple website and bought screens for 2 or 3 times the price to get a genuine Apple screen, I'd have kept fixing phones because that would have solved the problem. Yeah.
I think in that situation where it was like 1 in 10, I'd have possibly been, depending on what the purchase price was, bought 10 boxes of them, taken all of the good screens, sent all of the other ones back, and got 100% refund because eBay.
Yeah.
And just been like, and then message them saying, where can I buy the good screens that work so I don't get free screens out of you because there's 100% success rate on me returning stuff.
You're screwing me, so I will screw you until you...
You will get screwed more by this because you'll have to pay for shipping and then give me refunds.
If you're going to play this game, then let's play this game. I've got consumer law on my side.
Yeah, exactly. You have failed to supply functioning goods. I'm asking you, how do I guarantee functioning goods from you? I'll even give you more money for it.
Yeah, interesting scenario. Yeah.
But yes, I mean, that's my usual method when things don't go right. I start going to people, have you considered possibly the fact that the law is on my side?
Yeah.
Maybe.
We don't like abusing it, but hey, if you're going to screw me, then I will stop pulling my punches,
Yeah,
basically.
It's like the conversation I had for the RMA on my motherboard, where they confirmed when they received it, oh yes, it's faulty. We're going to replace it. So I then phoned them up a month later saying, so it's been faulty and you said a month ago it was faulty and you're going to replace it. Where is it? And they said, oh yeah, it will be a while. And I was like, you knew a month ago it was faulty. Why have you not already sent a replacement?
Yeah.
You knew a month ago. Come on.
Yeah, you could have built a new one from scratch by now,
Yeah, and then I was just like...
ordered it from Taipei,
I was just like, so are you going to give me a refund equivalent to a month's lack of use of this product, where you sold me a faulty product? And they're like, oh, I don't know, can I take your number and I'll call you back? They phoned me back and said, you'll have a new one tomorrow, and I was like, damn right I will.
Yeah, see, that wasn't so hard, was it? Yeah.
No, and then it got shipped in the wrong box with the wrong accessories. But at least it was the right board.
You've got one now, yeah. So is your 5950X working now?
Yeah, well, I had no problems with the.
Yeah, I'll rephrase that, but you're on that platform again.
Yeah, that's what I was always on. I was just using an X470 board.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Oh, fair enough. Yeah.
It was a bit trash.
Fair enough. Also, Night Fusion, thank you for the $5. I'm sure Caradog has already seen this, but final note on RAM, Threadripper Pro is 8-channel, and before Caradog asks, no, I'm not getting him one. He can dream. See, Caradog is not ashamed enough to be like, yeah, so you can get me free stuff, right? Whereas I'm just like, I don't want to ask, but if you could, Anyway, friends in high places. Let's see.
I've always run on the thing of if you don't ask, you don't get.
Yeah, my dad always said that as well. Never turn down money, my dad said.
Yeah, it's also the fact of it was something that someone explained to me at work that I never really understood, that I never realized, is the fact that the way I approach an awful lot of things is I already know I'm right and I already know that you're going to do this. I'm just waiting for you to see that you're already going to do this. And I never really realized that that's how I approach situations and problems a lot of times. Just kind of going, this is what you are going to do. I'm just waiting for you to realize that this is what you're doing.
Yeah, kind of similar to how one of the law YouTubers or lawyer YouTubers that I watch, when he's talking about cases and stuff like that, and he's talking about strategy and depositions and things like that, he says, you only ask questions to which you already know the answer. Never ask your witness a question that you do not know the answer to. And that is what constantly puts you in a position of power, because otherwise the witness can say whatever they want and you have no way of being able to verify that information. So you only ever ask questions to which you already know the answer. So when someone bullshits you, you can be like, no, that's wrong. So once again, I'll ask the same question,
Yeah, absolutely.
Noel Dowds asks, hi Graham, laptop page files set to 2 gigabytes, too much? i7 16 gigs RAM, 500 gig SSD, Windows 10 Pro. I used to be, my servicing video, which I have got to update because it is really out of date. There's nothing that's wrong per se about it, but it is out of date. My servicing video says that I set 2 gigabyte page files. I don't actually set manual page files anymore, especially not when there's an SSD involved, because Windows 10 doesn't seem to care and seems to be significantly better at auto-managing the page file. On older versions of Windows, I absolutely got performance benefits from setting a fixed 2 gigabyte page file. However, on Windows 10, it doesn't seem to help anymore, and I think we're at the point where Windows actually does know better. Old versions of Windows had a terrible habit where the automatic page file was just based purely on, it was something like 1.4 times the amount of system RAM or something like that. And the issue is that if they would generate, like for example, when with Windows XP came out in 2001 or something like that, where the expected amount of RAM in a computer was either 128 gigs or 256 gigs. Next.
Or if you were flashy, 256 megs.
256 megs of RAM was a lot in 2001. So running about 1.5 times the amount of system RAM as the page file kind of made sense. However, toward the end of the life of XP, where everyone was running around with 2 or 4 gigabytes of memory, running 1.5 times the amount of page file as 1.5 times the amount of system memory as your page file meant that everyone was running around with like 6 or even 8 gigabyte page files. It's like, it doesn't need to be that big. And that meant that it was wasting a lot of space and potentially causing excessive hard drive scrubbing, which isn't necessarily wearing out the hard drive, but it's excessive scrubbing, which is keeping the hard drive busy, which is slowing down the computer more than the benefit of the larger page file. And that was why I was setting fixed 2 gigabyte page file sizes. I was basically making it as small as possible while still being useful. So you had that little bit of overflow if your system RAM was getting full. However, it wasn't so large that by the time you scrubbed through the page file, you could have just fetched it from the hard drive anyway. However, on modern computers and with SSDs, where your SSD is so fast that it's really not a big deal to call from the SSD, messing with the page file doesn't seem to matter anymore. So now I generally just say, just set it to system managed and let Windows deal with it. Because also Windows is doing weird stuff with caching now that, again, it never used to do.
It's just a random anecdotal thing on that. The PC I'm talking to you on at the moment has 32 gigs of RAM. My page file is 4.86 gigabytes.
Yeah, exactly.
So 4,860 megabytes.
I still see people quoting the when talking about page files, I still see people quoting, oh, it should be 1.4 times the amount of system RAM or something like that. And I'm just like, well, what the hell do you do if you got 64 gigs of RAM? 64 gig page file? Are you nuts? You know. So yeah.
I am certain that you could construct a scenario where having 64 gig page file would give a performance benefit. However, I imagine that is so far detached from an environment that you'd be running Windows 10 in that it's irrelevant.
Yeah, absolutely. Certainly not on consumer hardware, which I think is where the perspective that most of us are coming from. So yeah.
Absolutely.
So yes.
Also, I've just noticed that I'm not compressed into the Stone Age today.
I was going to say, Nick too just said the stream is looking very crisp. Yeah. I'm not sure what the deal with it. One thing...
Maybe fewer people are using Discord for video calls right now.
Maybe. Yeah, we haven't changed anything. It is normal. The other thing as well is I've got a dual screen set up in front of me again now, so I don't know if the way I'm handling Discord windows is changing things. Although no, I always have the Discord call window maximized anyway, just so OBS is getting the highest source resolution it can to to work with. But I don't know if the layout that I'm using for the stream windows is having any kind of impact on it. But I don't know.
Who knows?
Yeah.
But still, good news.
Yes, indeed. Let's see. Yeah, Teltac, if you need 64 gigs of paging, you need to change how you work. Yeah, yeah, it certainly sounds that way. I have always said to people, like now and then, some people say sort of, oh no, I run a big page file. And I'm like, if you need a big page file, you need more RAM. That is, again, that's a sweeping generalization. However, that is something that I have often said to people. Because I have had people say sort of, oh, 2 gigabyte page file is too small. And I'm like, well, again, if you need a big page file, you probably need more RAM. So the exception to that rule is if you're working on some old dear's laptop and you're like, I really don't want to pay for a RAM upgrade on this thing because it's a junker laptop or something like that. Sure, I've sometimes put on, like, if I'm on a laptop where we're limited to 4 gigs of RAM because of hardware limitations for whatever reason, I've sometimes manually set big page files to give it a bit of a buffer, and that can sometimes soften the impact of having a small amount of system RAM. Whoops. Yeah, sorry. But again, that's very much when you're making the best of a bad situation, and not something that I would make a habit of. Basically, because that, when you say to people, "Oh, it's free memory," kind of thing, you run the risk of teaching people the bad habit of a page file is free RAM, and it's like no, a page file is not a substitute for more memory. It's
given the order of magnitude.
Yeah.
Given the order of magnitude difference in latency.
Yeah, in a pinch, you can scrub through by putting in a big page file just to soften it a bit, but it's just like, oh, that's worst case scenario.
So what's the fastest random SSDs at the moment? Maybe 2 gigabytes, 3 gigabytes a second for random read-write?
Yeah, probably. I don't keep track of...
Your RAM is doing 55 to 60 gigabytes a second.
Yeah. Whenever I run up memtest 86 and it shows you level 1, level 2, level 3 caches and stuff like that, and you see the numbers, you see the speed that the CPU caches are running at, and you're just like, what is that number? And it's up in the orders of hundreds of gigabytes per second transfer speeds, and you're just like, But then on the other hand, obviously the cache is at the point where your CPU core is literally just leaning over the counter and going, "Hey, I need this," So I don't even need to go on a bus to get to this place. So,
Absolutely. Yes. It's good.
All right, let's see. Shop tour, YouTube stream walk around. That's all in the bonus footage at the moment. But I tell you what I'll do. I do secret little bonus bits for people who take the time to come to this stream. How much am I? I'll give you. I'll show you what the camera can see from this point. Just as a quick bit of bonus. Let me see. How am I going to do this? I'm going to go. What I'm going to do is this. I'm going to switch to bench cam inverted. And I'm going to do this. And let me put the camera onto 90 degrees so it can see more. I'm upside down.
Oh, hello.
Bam. There we go. Her. Right, and let's just unlock that. Ooh. Okay, we're in the back room of the shop at the moment. So this is the workshop. So that's where the counter is at the moment. That's the front room along there. And this is the workspace I'm in. That's not a window, it's a mirror. Don't ask, it's a long story. And there's me. And we go around there. And then through that door over there, that's the kitchen, storeroom, and stuff like that. And this is the new workbench as it currently stands. And if I come down and go to non-inverted, that is the current monitor setup. As you can see, I've got the monitors just on boxes behind the counter at the moment. Just so I've got a dual screen set up here. And yeah, that's currently what we've got at the moment. It's a work in progress. And yeah, through there is the main shop floor. I'm not going to show you any of that because obviously this is a fixed camera. I can't actually show you that. I don't have the technology to get you out there at the moment. So 78 degrees, podcast split, and flip camera. There we go. So there was a super quick tour of the shop. Now I need to get this camera back into position. I've ruined everything forever now. However, we're low on time anyway, so who cares? There we go. So there you go. That was a very quick thing. And as you can see, I've got gallons of space. Like, obviously, I'd need to show a picture of the old shop so you guys could see the space comparison. But trust me, I've got so much room in here. There will be public videos showing the full tour, the whole shooting match. All of that will come out. But the public video will happen when I do a big reveal of everything, and that will be when the shop is not when the shop is finished, but when it is ready per se. Like, I don't have fitted counters in the main room yet. It's just trestle tables, which don't look very good. So like, I'm going to wait until I've got the counters fitted in and stuff like that, so everything looks nice and swish. And then when that's done, and I've like, there's going to be a counter behind me as well, because like the goal is that, like, again, if I just quickly cut Caradog out, sorry Caradog, if I go to full screen view, the goal is that we'll be recording a video. Actually, I can't switch to the camera. We'll be recording a video. I've got the bench here and the camera looking down on the bench, and behind me will be another counter. And so, like, if I'm fixing a laptop, and I'm like, I think this laptop has a bad hard drive. So I take the hard drive out of the laptop, and I go, I'll plug this into my hard drive testing machine. I turn around, plop it into a dock that's on a computer here, and I click Start Test, and it starts testing the drive. And I can be like, cool, that's now testing the drive. We'll leave that to run, and we'll come back and start cleaning up the fans and things like that. So I'll have all this test equipment behind me that I can refer to, and then I've got all the soldering gear and stuff banked around me here. So that's sort of the plan. Whoop.
I hadn't thought about it, but the fact that you've got a hard floor now is probably going to make dust far less of an issue.
Yeah, that's the thing. Someone somewhere, I think it was in one of the YouTube comments on one of the behind the scenes videos. Also, someone earlier on asked, how do we see the secret videos? To get the behind the scenes videos that show the tours, there's already video tours and stuff for the shop as it currently is. You need to be you can be a channel member, so you can join the channel by clicking the join button down below, or you can support me on Patreon. The link is in the description down below. Or if you subscribe to my Twitch channel, you can also get access to things through there as well. And those people who are premium supporters get access to the behind the scenes videos. So yeah, someone on one of those videos said, "Oh, have you thought about carpet in the new shop?" And part of me is just like, yeah, the hard tiles are kind of not clinical, but it's a hard floor, and having even just carpet tiles would be nice. It would be nicer to walk around. It'd be quieter and softer in here. However, the hard tile floor is incredibly convenient because I can just sweep it. It's a lot easier to sweep a floor than it is to hoover it every other day. So yeah, Caradog is just linked in my my Twitch channel there. That's where I do gaming streams on Thursday and Sunday nights. And yeah, if you subscribe to me on Twitch and you've linked in your Discord accounts and you're in the Discord, you get access to the bonus content there as well. So yeah. So yeah, that's that stuff. So yeah, wear nicer shoes. That's a good point. Yep, nicer shoes do make for more comfortable walking around. So yeah, plus carpet is static on dry, hot days. That's not really an issue that I have experienced in my neck of the woods. From the Scottish flag in your profile picture, I'm guessing Scotland. So I'm surprised you might have issues, but static isn't an issue that I run into. But on the flip side, again, arguably it's less potential for static. So yeah, still a valid point. Just get a couple of throw rugs. Yeah, could do. Yeah, we'll see how it goes.
It might be worth doing something like that just out the back. Just because it's a big flat reflective surface, so possibly.
Oh, for the sake of sound quality.
Yeah.
Yeah, possibly. We'll see. Well, as I say, my friend is possibly going to source me a load of soundproofing tiles, and because I'll be getting those for free, it doesn't cost anything for me to just stick those on the walls and possibly the wall over there, which is probably where a lot of the bounce is coming from, and just see what kind of impact that has. I'm not worried about eliminating echo entirely, because there was a bit of echo in the old shop. I don't need to eliminate it. I just need to reduce it so it's not a concert hall, basically.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. Let's see. Anti-static wristband to the carpet. Yeah. Oh, that'd be... Yeah. Oh.
I imagine that you can get, like, anti-static carpet.
Probably.
I presume there's probably special carpet
Yeah.
tiles you can get.
As I said, I've never really looked into it because it's nothing that's been an issue. I mean, a really great point about it being an issue is, did you see Jay's 2 Cents did a video a while back where he's been having major issues with static in his home office, to the point where he thought it was the chair. He thought he's got that Logitech gaming chair, you know, the fancy one. The
one that I keep calling Harman Kardon.
Yes.
The Herman Miller.
Yeah, the Logitech Harman Kardon chair. The Herman Miller, yes. He's got that chair, and he thought it was giving him horrifying static. But the reality is, it's just the environment, the climate, and all the rest of it is causing him static issues. But the thing is, he would sit in that chair, and he would just go, I'm sitting in my chair, da-da-da-da-da, do the keyboard, do the mouse. And then he would stand up and touch anything metallic and get a bang static shock, like a proper ow static shock from it. And he could sit and rinse and repeat that over and over again. And they were doing it constantly during the video. And it would make his monitors flicker and stuff like that. He would stand up from his chair, touch his computer, get a zap off it, and the monitor would blink green and then come back again. Like proper, like, oh, that looks problematic kind of static. And nothing seemed to be taking damage, but certainly it was enough. It was just like, that's a problem. That's something you got to fix. And he was trying, he hasn't done a follow-up video, but like in that particular video, he bought like a anti-static mat for the chair to stand on. Didn't work. Didn't have any effect at all. So it's definitely, it's an issue. And yeah,
I guess
it's an interesting... Yeah, I was going to say,
when you live in a desert.
Yeah, basically, that's what happens when you live in a desert, and that's the thing. But yeah, I think it's a very interesting video because it definitely shows a real worst-case scenario where static is actually a problem. And if I were him, I would absolutely be very concerned about building computers in that room, for example. The static issues he was suffering is at the point where even I'd be like, "Whoa, dude, I would definitely be wearing an anti-static band." But the question is like he was sort of the question that the video was posing was, how the hell do you solve this? What do I do about this? I can't wear an anti-static wristband my whole life just to sit at my computer and play video games. So yeah, I don't have, there's no solution to this story. It's just an interesting story that there are conditions where static really is a big enemy.
Absolutely. But
So,
as the video with Electra Boom and
Linus
showed, it is difficult but not impossible to kill stuff with discharge.
Yeah.
With static discharge.
They had to go to very extreme lengths. And like there are a couple of times like I feel like they were, in a way, they were kind of arguing from a conclusion in that video, because I feel like Linus wanted to end the video to show how static was actually dangerous. But in order to actually get static to a dangerous level, they were using a gun that generated obnoxious amounts of static for the purposes of safety testing, which is a case of that's not a real life scenario. And,
Absolutely. That was kind of the point that they were proving, though.
In order to actually, you can kill it with static, but you need unrealistic levels.
Yeah. Or certainly massively unlucky, because I think the very first RAM module they got, they just picked it up and it just went...
Yes. Yeah, that's
so it's
true.
kind of a case of, it has to be massively unrealistic or just super unlucky. And I think that's the point that they were proving, was the fact that even if it's unlikely, you can just get unlucky. And get a discharge in the right place. Which
Gareth Jones
kills
just
everything.
said that Jay has a capacitance issue with his building, ground the building. That sounds interesting. I don't know enough to be able to comment on that, but yeah, that actually sounds interesting. Could you just literally stick a hecking grounding strap to the walls of the building, and might that resolve it? I don't know, but that sounds like that
Yeah.
might be the direction that he needs to go in to fix that problem. No
Yeah.
idea, but that sounds
I
interesting.
I kind of feel like it would also almost be from the perspective of you'd be looking at making the walls and the floor and stuff constantly discharge stuff.
That's
So
just
you're
it.
not necessarily fixing the issue, but you're mitigating
Yeah,
it
you're
by
reducing it enough
redirecting
that
the
it's
path.
yeah, because you've only got to reduce the build up to the point where it cannot build up to a meaningful level. Because that's the thing, like right here, I'm in South England. The humidity is high enough that any charges in the air discharge just through the humidity of the air to ground before they can build up enough to become a static discharge. Because obviously charge builds up all the time. I'm wearing jumpers that would generate a lot of static, and I notoriously have always worn big jumpers while building computers. But with the amount of water in the air in this part of the country, there's no way that I could build up a big enough charge without it just dissipating through the air, which is the thing. So yeah, so that's if you've got like a lightning conductor attached to your building all the time, so the building itself is constantly dissipating, maybe it doesn't build up high enough. So,
yeah,
yeah,
it's an interesting issue, and it's interesting, obviously, how it's so diverse and not universal.
yeah, yeah, and that's the thing, and diverse and not universal, I think, is the key point here because. I mean, I don't get a lot of issue with it, but every now and then there's someone in my comments who starts wailing about static, and now and then it's someone who is just like, "Oh, I work in the UK too. We work in they start throwing around professional and stuff like that, where they talk about doing professional repairs and things like that, sort of implying that I'm not a professional outfit, whatever. But they say how we use top tier anti-static desks and top tier anti-static wristbands, and we're always grounded, and we have to wear special shoes and stuff like that. And I'm just like, do you need to though? Like, bravo for taking all those precautions, but do you need to? And they're talking about just fixing computers, and that's the thing.
Depends, I
but
think, on what you're doing.
I don't know. Yeah, but
So, yeah.
yeah. I think the point is that there are certain areas and certain conditions where you do need to take measures. But the reason why I don't take measures against static is because for the work that I am doing on consumer grade hardware, it's never been an issue.
Also, the fact that if your power supply is plugged in to the mains and you touch the case, you have
you're
grounded
grounding.
yourself.
That's true.
So it's kind of
how
a case of
I generally operate with. Yeah, I suppose I was going to say I generally operate with the power cable unplugged out of habit because that's how I turn off the computer.
But if it was turned on,
yeah, that's a good point. If you wanted to take just
been discharged.
Yeah, if you wanted to take basic countermeasures, just while you're working on the computer, leave the power cable plugged in and turned off at the wall so the ground wire is connected. This is, of course, assuming you're in the UK and you've actually got a grounding. Don't know. Do US IEC cables have a ground plug on them? I don't think they do they? Because standard US sockets don't have a ground pin, do they?
I've no idea. As far as I'm aware, they're all 2-pin.
Yeah.
But I don't know how that system works in sufficient detail to say one way or the other. But yeah.
Yeah. I'm not sure. I'm getting onto the edges of knowledge, and I don't want to start chatting for breeze here.
But certainly the case of that's something we can do here.
Yeah.
Because obviously how easy it is to.
Yeah. I'm gonna tread carefully because it depends.
A case.
Yeah. Certainly, as you say, it's a diverse issue. And I think the point that I actually wanted to make on that remark was that just because I don't think that static is a big deal doesn't mean that someone else in another part of the world won't have an issue with static. So exactly. It doesn't make if you're one of my viewers and you're in Arizona and you're saying, oh well, Graham from Adamant IT, he doesn't wear an anti-static wristband. you're in Arizona, you should probably wear an anti-static wristband,
Yeah.
because it's 2% humidity or something like that,
Yeah.
Whereas, if I'm in North Dorset, the humidity is like 70% all the time. I don't need to wear an anti-static wristband.
And that's when it's dry.
Yeah, that's right. I'm going to roll back a bit. I missed a super chat earlier on from Michael Pilgard with 50 DKKs, with 50 Donkey Kongs, which we have established are Danish Corona.
Danish.
Yes, Danish Corona. And it is 1 GBP is 8.58. So thank you very much for the 50 Donkey Kongs. Much appreciated, my dude.
It approximately works out to £5.83. There we go.
I started reading the numbers and I was like, I'm going to have to do maths here. And we're 2 hours into a stream, so my brain has turned to mush. So we have this joke every week.
Good job. Well done. Congrats.
I appreciate you greatly. Thank you very much. Right. Are we done? I think we're about done today, aren't we? Because we're 2 hours. We're 2 hours. It's coming up to 6 o'clock, and I seem to have exhausted my my notepad documents as well. So I think, unless there's anything you want to add, Caradog, I think we're going to wrap up today.
No, I think that's everything. There's nothing burning.
Yep. Very good. Except someone's lighter fluid on their leg and their phone.
Yes. that was quite a while ago.
Some say it's still burning today.
Oh dear.
Anyway, right, in that case, I'm gonna have I finished the graphics card stuff? There is no graphics card stuff because you can't buy them. Whatever it is to do with graphics cards, it doesn't exist. So yeah. Anywho, the 3060 looks like a jolly nice graphics card if you could buy it. Anyway,
Indeed.
Thank you everyone for coming today. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for the super chats. Thank you for the channel memberships. Thank you for your presence here today. How can you get in touch with me to fix a MacBook? I don't do mail-in repairs at the moment. So the answer to that is you cannot. I am only doing walk-in repairs at the moment because I'm snowed under. Later on in the year, I will get set up for mail-in repair where I can actually handle that properly, where I have a proper system for in and out and shipping and stuff like that. But I'm just not set up for it at the moment. So I appreciate the offer, but I can't deal with it at the moment, I'm afraid. But thank you anyway. Anyway, yes, thank you for everything, everyone. Support links have just gone out in the chat, courtesy of Caradog. Thanks for handling that. And I will see you guys, or we will see you guys next Saturday, as usual. Yeah, thanks, everyone. Goodbye. See you. Farewell.
Good evening. Good afternoon. Farewell.
The rest of it. And I need live streaming, and I'm going to hit the stream. Thank you, everyone. Goodbye.
Ciao. Goodbye.
Bam.